Karoline Leavitt humiliated after Jasmine Crockett's savage comeback left her speechless became one of those unforgettable political flashpoints that people reference for years, not only because of the viral nature of the moment itself but also because of what it symbolized about authenticity, rhetoric, and the shifting dynamics of political discourse in an age where a single exchange can make or break reputations, and in this particular case the exchange unfolded in such a dramatic, almost cinematic way that viewers were glued to their screens, dissecting every gesture, every pause, and every word, because the clash between Leavitt and Crockett was not just about the surface-level issue at hand but about two entirely different approaches to politics colliding head-on, one rooted in carefully rehearsed talking points and media polish, the other in unfiltered passion and unapologetic truth-telling, and that collision produced sparks that illuminated the deeper fault lines of political communication in the modern era. And so the humiliation of Karoline Leavitt did not occur in a vacuum but within a context where audiences are hyper-attuned to signs of authenticity versus signs of artifice, and when Leavitt stepped into the ring against Jasmine Crockett she carried with her the aura of someone trained to deliver lines, someone accustomed to controlling the narrative through composure and polish, but what she did not anticipate was how completely unprepared she was to deal with an opponent who thrived not on polish but on fire, not on rehearsed answers but on instinctive comebacks. And Jasmine Crockett embodied that fire in full force, meeting Leavitt's every attempt at rhetoric with sharp, unsparing honesty that cut straight through the veneer of political doublespeak, and the defining moment of the exchange came when Leavitt attempted to corner Crockett with a question designed to undermine her credibility, delivering it with a smirk that suggested confidence in her own superiority, but Crockett, instead of hesitating, delivered a savage comeback that dismantled not only the question but the premise behind it, flipping the script so quickly and so powerfully that the entire room felt the shift, and the comeback was not just a clever retort but a full frontal exposure of the weakness in Leavitt's approach, calling out hypocrisy, highlighting inconsistencies, and doing so with such eloquence and force that the audience erupted while Leavitt visibly faltered, and that faltering was the moment humiliation took root, because politics is as much about perception as it is about substance, and the perception in that instant was that Leavitt had been stripped of her composure, her authority, and her ability to respond, and silence descended upon her not as a strategic pause but as a collapse, a desperate searching for words that never came, and in that silence Jasmine Crockett's victory was sealed, because silence in debate is louder than words, it announces defeat without needing to be named, and as cameras captured Leavitt's expression, the blinking, the tightened jaw, the forced smile that failed to mask discomfort, millions watching knew they were witnessing not just an exchange but a humiliation, and humiliation is the most unforgiving currency in politics because it lingers, it replays endlessly in clips and memes, it becomes shorthand for weakness, and for Karoline Leavitt this one moment of silence, following one savage comeback, became the defining image of her political persona in the minds of many, overshadowing the years of work she had put into building her career, because the public memory is ruthless in what it chooses to preserve, and it preserved the humiliation, looping it across social media, splicing it into reaction videos, dissecting it in commentary panels, until the narrative was inescapable. Karoline Leavitt had been humiliated, Jasmine Crockett had delivered the savage comeback of the season, and the imbalance between them was now permanently fixed in the popular imagination, and this matters because reputations in politics are fragile ecosystems, they require constant cultivation, and once they are poisoned by a moment of public collapse, the recovery is almost impossible, and indeed, in the aftermath Leavitt tried to reclaim control, issuing statements, attempting to redirect the narrative, leaning on her supporters to portray her as victim of unfair treatment, but none of it could erase the visual of her silence, none of it could erase the memory of Crockett's triumphant cadence, because words after the fact rarely overwrite the moment itself, and so the humiliation calcified, becoming part of her brand in ways she never intended, and Crockett by contrast soared, celebrated not only for the win but for the authenticity that defined it, her supporters energized, her critics grudgingly impressed, and political observers noting that this was not just about one comeback but about a generational shift in what audiences reward, because the days of scripted perfection are waning and the appetite for raw, passionate, unapologetic truth is growing, and Jasmine Crockett tapped into that appetite perfectly, her savage comeback a symbol of the new political language that resonates, and Karoline Leavitt's speechless reaction a cautionary tale of what happens when the old model collides with the new, and so when we say she was humiliated we mean more than personal embarrassment. We mean a structural undermining of her position, a collapse of her rhetorical authority, a public stripping away of her political armor, and the legacy of that humiliation will outlast the news cycle because it is now etched into the broader cultural archive, referenced whenever debates about authenticity arise, replayed whenever examples of political meltdowns are needed, and remembered most of all as THLE night Jasmine Crockett delivered the savage comeback that left Karoline Leavitt speechless, humiliated, and permanently transformed in the eyes of the public.